Welcome to the Dean's Roundtable podcast series with Bridget Johnson. Each month, we bring you game-changing conversations about K-12 education and leadership. Join us as top educators, field experts, and administrators share actionable strategies to transform your school community. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Dean's Roundtable podcast. I'm Bridget Johnson, the founder of the Dean's Roundtable, a space created for student-life professionals to connect, learn, share, and grow together. I am so excited about our guests joining us today. Please welcome Malachi Rivers and Dr. George James. I first met Malachi over 12 years ago when I was brand new to living in New York City, and we quickly formed a friendship that stood the test of time. Malachi is an amazing talent, an award-winning actor, content creator, and producer whose recent series, Moments, has garnered international acclaim. The series, which explores the complex journeys of a therapy group, speaks to his deep understanding of human nature and commitment to telling stories that matter. Also joining us is Dr. George James. I met him through my brother while they were roommates at Villanova University. As a licensed marriage and family therapist, CEO of George Talks, and assistant professor at Thomas Jefferson University, Dr. James brings both professional expertise and personal wisdom to our conversation. His work with professionals, couples, and young adults has given him unique insights into how personal struggles shape our public personas. Today's episode tackles a theme that resonates deeply in our current moment: the complexity of human experience and the invisible weight many carry as they navigate their daily lives. In our schools, workplaces, and communities, people are constantly managing personal challenges that others may never see: mental health struggles, family responsibilities, or emotional burdens that influence their behavior and interaction in profound ways. Of Malachi's storytelling expertise and Dr. James's clinical insights, we're going to examine how understanding these hidden dimensions can transform our approach to leadership, education, and community building. We'll explore how to create environments where people feel safe sharing their struggles, the intersection of personal challenges and professional responsibilities, and strategies for leaders to support those dealing with invisible battles. So let's begin this, what promises to be a powerful conversation about mental health, human connections, and the stories we all carry with us. So again, welcome so much. I'm so happy you guys are here with me today. I really appreciate it. And so I'm just going to jump right in. Mal, I'm going to start with you. Why don't you talk about your journey and the inspiration behind Moments?
So Moments is a 9-episode digital series that I created. It's a short form digital series. And initially during the whole pandemic, a lot of actors and people were just going through a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? People just in general. But specifically actors, which I am, I wanted to connect with a lot of actors. And so I did a Instagram show called The Log Lounge, and where I would have actors come on and do monologues and things like that. And then I had some people who were like, "Oh, I can't choose a monologue. I don't know." And so I started writing monologues. But I realized these monologues were like kind of testimonials to things I was going through. And I realized it was such a release. And then when I started thinking about it further, I was just like, man, like, it would be amazing to actually create a show dealing with mental health, and especially dealing with Black people and mental health issues. And I got to work on it, and here we have Moments now. And I'm really proud of it. Each episode focuses on a different character dealing with different issues. And we kind of go there a lot of times to talk about things that people don't necessarily talk about, especially in the Black community.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. So, Dr. James, tell us a little bit about your journey and how you decided to kind of jump into this field, and what kind of resonates with you in terms of Mal's story.
First of all, thanks for having me on. We've been a fam for a long time, so it's cool to be able to do, something like this. And Malachi, I love like what you talked about, and obviously we'll share more. I grew up in a Black family with Jamaican roots. My parents and grandparents, aunts, uncles, all Jamaican, as I said. I'll add my Jamaican. And so that was kind of my upbringing. And so when you talk about Black Caribbean family, mental health wasn't necessarily talked about. Wasn't even the thing to do. If anything, it was like, you pray on it and you keep moving. And I went to college thinking that I wanted to be a medical doctor.
Hmm.
And my path allowed me to realize that wasn't it. That wasn't the fit. Grades wasn't as good as they wanted to be. I didn't really like it. And all those things got me to the place of saying, all right, there needs to be something else. And when I really reflected and thought about it and asked, even my close circle, I realized that I was nosy. I like listening. I want to hear people's stories. And so that moved me into psychology, but it wasn't until grad school where I was like, this is it, when I really learned to be a therapist and the ability to be there for people, be a sounding board, to support and challenge them at the same time. Just felt like this is what I was supposed to be. This is what I'm meant to do. And that has brought me on a whole path from working with folks who are incarcerated in halfway homes, working all the way to working with millionaires and billionaires, uh, athletes, entertainers, couples, executives, folks of all different walks, teams, family owned businesses, and even being able to do lots of stuff in the media world where I've been fortunate to be on TV to talk about lots of things related to mental health. And to Malachi's point, it took me a while to realize that just showing up as a Black man who was a therapist on national TV, that spoke volumes before I even said anything. That is saying it's okay for us to talk about our mental health, our mental wellness, our ups, our downs, and to fully integrate it to our life story. And so I love the part of the testimonials of like, yo, I'm writing these monologues, and it's like every time it comes out as a piece of me, which it is. That's like journaling. That's what I encourage people to do all the time. And so I love that you found such a creative outlet and way for yourself, but for so many other actors and the people who get to view the product that you produced.
Awesome. And so, one of the things I want to highlight here, a lot of the podcasts I've been doing have been more student related, and I really wanted to dig in here because everyone has something that they're struggling with, whether they're students or adults, and I want to make sure that I do some highlighting of what adults are kind of managing around this time or during this time or just generally in life, and how that can affect how we show up to work, how we show up for our families. And so I want to thread the needle here because I want people to understand that while we are also having to deal with students, we also have to deal with our colleagues, we also have to deal with parents. And so thinking a little bit more deeply about how we do that is really important. And so I really thought that this would be an interesting way to kind of highlight that in terms of looking at what people are dealing with behind the scenes and how they show up to a phone call with a dean or how they show up to a school because they've been called by the school to come and maybe either come get their child or have a conversation about their child and the things that they're bringing with them that we sometimes don't really think about. We just chalk it up to people being rude or people being entitled when we haven't been curious enough to maybe delve in a little bit deeper to see what people are struggling with and maybe empathize and give people the benefit of the doubt. And so that's why I loved this series, Mal, because you show so many different facets of what mental health can look like. Can you tell us a little bit about the series itself and kind of set up the clip that we're going to watch?
So the clip that you guys will watch is called Stretch Marks, and it's starring Sophie Bradshaw, who was one of the leads on Veep on HBO. Was a dear friend of mine, but her episode focuses on a woman who has a dream deferred. She wanted to be a dancer, and she ended up pregnant with the husband. She got the good man, and this is supposedly what you're supposed to want, right? You're supposed to want the good man, the child, the husband, and stuff like that. And she's like, I never had that motherly instinct. I never wanted this. I feel like I've lost myself. And then also after having a child going through postpartum, which is, a lot of things that we just don't talk about. And so that's what that episode is dealing with. And what's interesting about that particular episode is that, and I even say it to myself, it wasn't until my stepfather raised me, and he passed away years ago. And it wasn't until he passed away that I kind of started looking at my mom as just a woman outside of me just being my mom. And I was like, oh, you know, she's doing her own thing. Like, she's not. I don't see her as just my mom. And I tie that in because it's like, you know, parents had lives before they had children. And if you don't nurture that and don't feed that life or who you were before you had a child, you know, you're going to end up with a lot of resentment, regrets, and it's going to come out, and it might even affect your child.
Awesome. All right. So with that said, I want us to get right to the clip because I think it's pretty important. So for those of you who are listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you can also see us on YouTube where you can actually view the clip as well. So we're going to show the clip.
We often have thoughts of going back and changing the one thing that we think altered our lives. People, no matter how happy or unhappy they are, always find their way to the what if. If I would have known then what I know now syndrome. How did I end up here? The funny thing about life is that the impact of a moment on your life will change the moment you decide to confront it. Until then, you will dwell in the abyss of it. Your power lies in your present. For wherever you run, there you will be. And no one can determine the outcome but you. Not even me.
Okay, so let's get started. So as you all know, you've all signed informed consent agreements, and confidentiality is extremely important because you will be leaning on each other and on me as your therapist through this process. Okay? But I want to stress that you must make sure that whatever goes on in the group stays in the group. All right, you all ready to do this?
Yeah.
Okay, so I thought we would start with an icebreaker exercise. Okay, I know. All right. So the icebreaker is important because it'll help us get to know one another. And one of my favorite icebreakers is called 2 Truths and a Lie. So I would like you all to tell me 2 truths about yourself and 1 lie that may be true, but the group will have to guess it. Okay?
Okay.
Okay? All right. Let's go ahead and give it a go. Elaine? 2 truths and a lie.
In this moment, there is a 1-2 step. But which direction?
I am married with a baby. I am a professional dancer. And I live in a house.
Okay, so you agility.
Well, how's your dating going? You said it was another site or?
And Christian Mingle.
Oh,
I tried
okay.
Christian Mingle.
Oh, yeah, that's nice, huh? Let's see mommy, see what mommy's doing. Hey, babes. Hey, can you do me a favor? I'm about to jump in the shower. Can you watch it for me? Thank you so much. So what are you cooking for dinner tonight?
Dinner? Well, I hadn't thought about that yet, James.
Okay, no worries. We can always order in. If not, I'll go pick something up. You know me, I go with the flow.
Do you mind?
Oh, no, of course. I see you guys are getting your stretching on. I'll leave you in peace.
Girl.
Oh my goodness.
You got a good ass man.
Oh.
Yeah, you do. I mean, the last time my brother even cared about what I put in my mouth besides the gok, I couldn't even remember.
Yeah.
Hey, babe.
Yeah.
Hey, have you seen my gray sweats?
Your gray sweats? What?
Yes, the gray ones. You know, the ones that make my print pop.
What? Just like that in front of your kid?
Oh, girl, you found the sweatpants.
I was just having fun, babe. Jeez, tough crowd here.
Oh, you know it's tough. I was listening to you ask me what I'm about to cook for dinner. I'll listen to you asking me where the hell your pants are. I'm not your fucking maid. James.
Am I missing something? I figured you're home all day. You would just know where certain things are and where stuff is.
Yeah, I'm home watching your son.
Our son.
You know what I'm talking about!
Wow. Well, Lane, sometimes I don't know what you mean. It's like no matter what I do, you don't seem to be happy. So what is it? Huh? What is it? What is it? What is it? You know what? Forget it. Enjoy your stretching.
Girl. What the hell was that?
Man, I never thought this was gonna be my life.
Pause. This is a zen moment right now. I'm holding you back. He dropping crackers on me. Get your baby.
Come on, Bubba.
Go.
I never wanted this life. This was his plan. Yeah.
Okay. You don't want this beautiful house or your son?
I wanted a loft, you know that. I wanted to tour and see the world. I was a dancer, Bree. I was a dancer.
Okay. Sicily moment's over for me. The moment and energy is gone.
You want your daddy go?
Yeah. This is, you know what? I became a nanny in this moment. Butter cake-ish.
Oh, girl.
I love you, all right?
You too. We just having a heart. We're gonna be.
Get it together. I get it. You got a good man. Just take it easy. Okay? I'll call you later. Okay. All right.
Oh, man, you listen to me and you listen to me good. Oh. I know, baby, I know. Follow your dreams, baby. Follow your dreams. He's a good man. He really is. And he tries. He really does. I mean, he did the honorable thing, right? I was pregnant and he made me his wife. We got the house, the white picket fence. Well, it was great, but you know, you get the point. What every woman dreams of. The perfect husband, the great kid, the house. I mean, my parents love him. He's a good man. He really is. And I tried to convince myself to feel the same way about him that he does about me. Everything that is textbook great guy he fits. But what about me? Oh, fuck. Get here, Elaine. I was a fucking dancer. I never had that motherly desire. Should I feel bad about that? I was gonna tour the world. I'm a failure. I was a dancer, damn it. Why did I let Elvin Ailey just slip through the cracks?
So, Elaine, what's the lie?
I'm not a professional dancer. I mean, I wanted to be. Like, I was great, but... Well, you know, life happens and,
Well, we're here for one another, and we are going to help each other get through it. Really.
Okay.
Cause I just wanna dance, I just wanna groove, I just wanna feel it, yes that is a move. Had enough of tears, fighting through my fears. I don't know if I'll make it, but I just need you near. Yeah, come on. I just wanna dance, yeah, I wanna dance, I just wanna groove, see me move, yeah, I like it, I just wanna dance, I like it. I just wanna dance, I just wanna groove, I just wanna feel it, yes that is the move. Had enough of tears, fighting through my fear. I don't know if I'll make it, but I just need you.
All right, so we now had a chance to watch the clip. Dr. James, give us some feedback, some thoughts on what we just witnessed.
I love that clip or that episode, and Malachi, you did such an awesome job of really diving into the character in such a short moment of being able to say, like, how many times do people have dreams that just don't happen, and how it sticks with us. It like, it's not just that we moved on. Like, sometimes we have to pivot, but sometimes it's just stuck and saying, like, the life I have is not the life that I've always wanted, not the life I've dreamt. And I think, to your point, oftentimes we assign these expectations to women, to mothers, of like, oh, you should be happy or you should want this, as if like there isn't more to it. And the wrestling of that, right? That, what does it now mean to have a partner that loves you and wants to be with you, but yet like you are frustrated by the reality that you're in? And so I think all of that is just so palpable, even with like the friend next to you saying, like, girl, it's a good man, like you should be happy. Like, so that's the society kind of repeating these messages that, wait, something's wrong with me, when no, actually I'm struggling with like this place. Now I think her anger is a little bit displaced, which we do, right? Like, we take the anger about where we are and we put it out on somebody else. But I think it was just so beautiful of that internal struggle that creates so many things for us, just in that powerful episode.
And Dr. James, talk a little bit about how this can, when you say displacing anger to someone else, how that can affect children in the home.
Yeah, I see it often. Like, sometimes parents or family members are struggling, and now we all have different ways that we communicate or argue or fight. And that's the ways that those around us learn, right? Like, so, if you cuss a lot, then you're gonna have 2 and 3 year olds cussing real early, right? So like, it's because it's modeled. And so some of this is being able to be aware of what many of us don't often do, is can we take a moment and take and say, why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? Where did this come from? And what do I want to do about it? It's happening in split seconds. And so what we end up doing is that the first thing or person we see, it comes out. It's not, the classic story is that someone goes out in the world, they get beat up, they come home, they get frustrated at their partner gets frustrated at their kid, the kid gets frustrated at their sibling gets frustrated at the dog, right? Like that, how all that anger and frustration and all the emotions just constantly are moving within our system. But what we really need to do sometimes is take a moment and really think about what am I feeling, and what is the best, healthiest way for me to deal with it.
I agree with that. And so, what I'm going to do now is pose to both of you a question and love to hear your thoughts. In your respective work, you both see people at their most authentic, whether it's through art or therapy. And so, what was the moment that really opened your eyes to how much people carry with them that we don't see on the surface? Mal, I'll start with you.
When we were actually shooting moments. And so each episode has a moment where the character kind of just goes into a black screen and kind of like their inner thought. And so we made the choice from a show running perspective and then also a directing perspective to let the actor just repeat the monologue over and over again without saying cut. And to see these people like go into these spaces and everybody come out and say, I don't know what happened, but those words just hit me. And I tried to pair each character with something, because I talked to the actors before and I said, hey, I'm thinking about these experiences and things that I'm writing down for these characters. And for instance, even the clip that you guys saw with Sufi wanted to be a dancer. And her mom was like, nah. It was like, it was like, that's not gonna happen. She said that was her first love. And she said it was just so many things that kind of just came up. And as an actor, in order to be believable to the viewers, you really kind of got to bring some of yourself into it. You got to find that space where you're tapped into the character somehow and relate to it somehow. So we kind of play an emotional roller coaster all the time with our bodies and our emotions and feelings a lot of times as actors, if you're being true to the character. So that's one thing I say that actually really happened when they were filming the monologues. It was just these people it was unexpected to see some of these emotions come up with some of these people. And I'm like, you don't seem like you just acted. You seem like something going on. But it was great though. It was great.
I love that. It's like, you seem like you playing you right now.
Right.
Yeah, I love that question because on some level, I feel like it's every day. Like I had a really great conversation with my wife just yesterday, and we were kind of reflecting on how the parts of us connect, right? Like the parts of us that have been impacted in tough moments and the parts of us that are impacted in positive moments. And when we play back our story, we realize, how it just fits for the moments when we're really good and the moments when we're off. But the thought that came to my mind when you first shared was, I just remember working with a couple that was dealing with an affair, and when you on the surface, when you hear people talk about cheating, we all kind of have our personal thoughts and experiences about it. But when you hear somebody kind of break down how they got into the affair, what was happening in the relationship, and when you hear how the other person and how that impacted them, and how I've seen people experience levels of emotions that they've never felt before until feeling that level of betrayal and the challenges of that. And then when you take that out to any levels of betrayal, what happens if somebody takes your money? What happens if somebody like betrays you on a contract? Like just betrayal and what it brings up for people. And so just seeing the multiple layers, and when I kind of flip the other side of that, part of going through my education is I had to learn a lot about my family.
Mm.
So I learned about the men in my own family who had affairs. And then that helped me to think about, well, what type of man do I want to be? And so, like, these layers of who we are, what we've learned, the environment around us, and how one, to to Malachi's point, moment can trigger and alter your life and how you interact with people. So I see it every day. I see that we are complex, layered, beautiful people that sometimes we don't even know all the different influences that are impacting us. So I often think about race, class, gender, sexual orientation, ability, faith. All these things are just some pieces of us, plus our everyday interactions.
Yeah, and there's so many pieces of us, and I think it's so important that we remember that when we are frustrated with others, and think that we have all the pieces, meaning that we know everything that's happening with them, and assuming why they are responding the way they are. And so that actually leads me into my next question in terms of empathy, because I think um, there are often times where I feel like, gosh, if people just had a little bit more empathy, this world would operate a bit differently. So let's talk about that and the role of empathy and perspective taking in professional settings, whether it's in your world, Mal, or in your world, Dr. James. Talk about empathy and how that plays a role in the work that you do.
Uh, sheesh. Empathy is empathy is everything in my world. I mean, it's one of those things where because from an actor's perspective, a creator's perspective, uh, in order to perform, in order to come across a certain type of way, in order to do your job, uh, you have to kind of be tapped into a space of empathy, whether you're connecting with other actors or just being able to talk to them, because people go like we were talking about earlier. People just go through things, and in order for me to actually bring out the best performance or come across, as a writer or producer or director, you really got to be aware of like, hey, how are you feeling today? How are you doing today? Before we shoot this scene, you know what I mean? Before we go here, before we
Yeah.
do this, because um, I've experienced it a few times, which is the reason why they even have intimacy coordinators on set now. You know what I mean? Because of things
Yep.
like what people are going through.
Okay, so
And
I'm sorry,
they-
I'm gonna jump in right here. What is that? I have never heard of an intimacy coordinator.
I know. So it's become a thing like within the last, uh, I say last 10 years, but it's really like a thing now where productions will have an intimacy coordinator. So it's a person who comes in and they teach actors how to interact with each other, because somebody might actually, even though they're an actor, they might actually have an experience with rape personally. They might have an experience with something that triggers them. And so if you touch them in a certain type of way, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It might
Okay.
trigger something. So, or how do you feel? How do you feel comfortable? We have to do the sex scene, and we got to get it this way. So you got to be naked this way. You got to, certain things, and we need to be able to know that. Are you okay with this? I'm going to kiss here. Are you okay with that? So the intimacy coordinator kind of help navigate that, and so that kind of plays into our world as well. But
The
before it
therapist
used
on
to be,
set. I love it.
yeah, before it used to be people just kind of dive in. I've done a show where it was like, oh, this is who you're, whatever. Okay, kiss. And you're like, okay. Like,
Nice to meet you.
so, yeah. And so the intimacy coordinator, I think it's a beautiful thing. And now even sets are having therapists on it, especially if it's like a deep episode or movie or whatever have you. They're bringing therapists in, they're bringing intimacy coordinators in, because people really have issues before they even get on set about certain things.
I
So
wonder, I mean, obviously there, schools have counselors, right? But I'm thinking of this whole intimacy coordinator person. And I don't know if we would necessarily title it that, because that has some different connotations, right? In terms of what intimacy means. But it's really about getting to know someone, feeling comfortable with someone and being able to relate, right? And so what if we did that with, parents before you had a challenging phone call with a parent? And it's like, let's find some ways for us to connect and relate before we have this discussion about your child that could be, either uncomfortable or just kind of makes you upset or whatever, for lack of a better term. I never thought about that, but I'm like,
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, Mal, you're talking my language. some of the work I've been able to do is this intersection between mental health and entertainment, and the way that I've been able to support even production companies or writers or directors to think about what is it that you're trying to pull out in the scene, or what is the impact for you and those around. Even the folk, when you think about camera crew, the showrunner, people who are there are also experiencing what's happening, and they could also be affected. And so, I love, what you're saying. And, Bridget, to your point, like the thought of, yeah, what if we kind of took a pause and kind of, because that's usually what we need, right? Most of us know, like to your point about empathy, most of us know, like, I probably shouldn't come in hot all the time, right? I probably shouldn't start the conversation this way. But when it's my child, it's different, right? When it takes me longer to get to that place of kind of, okay, let me be more rational. But if I have an opportunity to get it out, if I have an opportunity to talk it out, if I have an opportunity to practice it, or to Malachi's point, if you have an opportunity just to get to know the person you're about to work with, it can make a huge difference on what you actually produce. And so, empathy is huge in my world, and you'll be surprised. There are some therapists who do not have empathy.
Wow.
They have skills, they have ability, but you might not feel that level of empathy, where once again, therapists are human too. And sometimes you'll interact with folks and you're like, nah, that's not it.
Mm.
That's I can't mess with that person, because they don't bring that level of empathy or connection or warmth that you might need.
I like that. I'm going to tag that and bring it back because I do want to talk about how we work with those people, because a lot of times we don't have the option of choosing who we work with. So I want to give people some tips to be able to kind of manage that. But even before we get there, we're talking about intimacy coordinators and having therapists and that sort of thing, and basically creating a safe space, right? And so I think it's so important that we create environments where people can feel safe in sharing their struggles. And so, again, I'll ask both of you all this question in terms of how are we creating those environments for people, or what are the things we should be thinking about as educators, as creators, as professional people when we are in positions where we are kind of people are entrusting, whether it's their children or their talent, to us. How do we create those safe spaces?
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick. There's been a lot about psychological safety,
Safety.
right? How are we creating a safe space, an environment? Because truthfully, lots of environments, be it school, on set, just in a community, have been toxic, have been harsh. And there's histories of how people are treated, how women are treated, how folks of color are treated, how young folks are treated. And to be able, and I fully believe it's whoever's creating the environment, whoever's leading the environment, it is on them to create a psychologically safe space, a space where people can be open, can be productive, can be creative. But that takes a lot of work, right? Sometimes it's bringing humor. Sometimes that's being vulnerable yourself. Sometimes that's having clear boundaries of what can and can't happen. But really being intentional about those things can really matter, because as we were saying, we don't know what people are dealing with that day, and we don't know what people are dealing with in their whole history. And when they come in, if it's still a toxic environment, that could disrupt their ability to learn, their ability to work, their ability to be creative, or even be productive.
Other thoughts, Mel?
Yeah. So there's a two part for me, like from as an indie filmmaker, um, yeah, I don't play that. Like you have to feel comfortable on my set. It's very, very important for me. And to make sure that everybody feels very comfortable, so that they're able to do the work and perform and do what they need to do. And I try to make sure that I have conversations with people and say, hey, um, are you able to do this role? Are you able to manage the time and to figure things out? Because that stuff is important. And so I work really hard from that as an indie perspective. But I've been on sets myself, like as working for movies and networks where you don't necessarily feel comfortable all the time. Even working with some directors where you're just like, wow, they really just come across like that. That they did really just say that, and you're expecting me to deliver a performance, and and it's like you just made me feel like crap. You know what I mean? It's just like so. I think it's important to know how to talk to your actors and the performers in order to get the best performance across. And that's that creating that safe space, just being able to have conversation and dialogue. And yeah, so I feel like I'll give you a little quick story. I was working on a movie with a well-known director, and I never felt like such a robot in my life because he was so particular about, it was just like one of these, well, your head is tilted too high. I need it down this way when you say this word. You're saying the, can you say the? Like that type of thing, right? And so it was one of those things where you were like, dang, like I feel like I'm losing my
Me,
who
I
I am
am.
as an
Yeah.
actor. Me, like it's just like creating that or whatever. And and then talking to other people, it was like, yeah, that's just how he is. And I'm like, and and for me, that doesn't feel the best, And so, but yeah, I mean, it just depends. But like I said, from an indie perspective, I'm very much like, no, I want actors to be able to explore, to feel safe, to be able to feel comfortable enough to go there. But you don't always get that on some major movies or networks.
I think it's just hard to get that anywhere. I think, I'm going to take a little aside here. We're living in society where, anything goes. You've got keyboard warriors who kind of say the things that they want to say, and it's more of we are living in an environment where um, people lack empathy, I think, and feel like it's okay in the kind of vein of free speech, being able to say or comment or be negative or be mean and hurtful to people in a way that was not tolerated a long time ago or a while ago. I'd say even 5 to 7 years ago. I think it's a different society that we live in now. And so being able to create safe spaces has become harder. And it's really a challenge, and really, you have to put the work in. And some people are tired. Let's be clear. Let's be honest about where we are right now. People are tired, but we still have to have the energy to say no. Like you said, Mal, on your sets, you're not playing that. But how do we get people in the workplace to say no? We're not having that type of behavior. We're not tolerating that. Where are we drawing the line? How are we drawing the line? And how can we draw the line when we have a society where anything goes? It makes it so much harder for us who are really trying to draw a line.
Yeah, and I think like that's where you'll see people try to find community, right? Like I'd imagine, Mal, like there's some actors that you can be cool with, and there's some actors you can't, right? Like
Oh yeah.
yeah, like like you figure out who your people are, and like same thing. There's some therapists that are like my people, my colleagues, and there's other folks I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't. I want to disassociate myself, right, because of how they might act and show up. And I think it is hard, and I think the point of what we're also saying today is just how many things people deal with. Like one of the talks I give is called "I Give Myself Permission," and often in that I'm asking people to just reflect on some of the stressors that they feel throughout just their day. And I list like 20 things. And I'm often amazed of how people will start to point out multiple things on the list that they feel. And I say to them, this is before I actually ask you what's happening in your home or household or in your life. And it just says that there's so much that we're carrying, so much we're dealing with, that a lot of people are full. And sometimes that produces not so great behavior. Sometimes that produces some folks just being in a shell of themselves. And some folks are really like struggling with even loneliness. It's a huge thing that people are dealing with right now. So there's just
Absolutely.
a lot of things that I think impact us and how we're able to show up.
Yeah, and I don't think we talk about that enough, Dr. James. I really feel like we again, just take people's behavior at face or surface value when there's so much more that's happening behind the scenes, which is, like I said, again, why I wanted to do this series and talk about this in this way, which is not necessarily conventional for me and educators, but seeing how people show up and seeing why they show up the way that they do and being curious about how they're showing up is one way that we can kind of bridge that gap a little bit, right? But what I want to talk about next a little bit is just the intersection of personal challenges and professional responsibilities. Like we have kind of, we were going down that path to begin with, and I think this is a great segue. But you know, at work and at home, we can show up differently, but sometimes those lines get blurred. And sometimes we have a hard time, you know, showing up, whether it's for a spouse, for a coworker, or for the people that we manage. And so let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about, in both your worlds, how personal challenges can get in the way of your professional responsibilities.
Woo!
You
That's
didn't
why
know
I'm
we're gonna
letting
have
you
a
go
session
first.
today, right?
I was like, all right, you do it.
That's a whole nother hour. Um, yeah, it's not easy all the time, you know. It's just, listen, the reality of it is, personally, a lot of actors, whether they're honest with it or not, or relay it to other people, are struggling. You know, when you really break down like how many people are actually surviving off of being actors or performers, like really like it's very little, right? And you know, it's one of those things where a lot of times people try to keep up a front, and you know, they come across all smiley. I'm like, hey, I'm good, you know. Um, and I have to say, so you know, we're just focused on the actor perspective. Is that it happened twice where it was like a punch to the gut. You know what I mean? Where it's just like the pandemic, and then you have the strike. You know what I mean? And it's just like, so you have a lot of performers who, even if they were on a show as a series regular or whatever, they're not doing what they used to do anymore. You know what I mean? They're not bringing in what they used to bring in financially. And I say that because that's a big personal struggle that you know that people deal with, and then so you're kind of going into a professional setting a lot of times, and you know you're unraveling, and you're like, Lord, I need this job. Lord, this thing gonna cut my benefits. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like I need this job to get benefits. You know, and I can't even think of the guy's name, but he was in he won the Oscar for. Asian guy who won the Oscar for what is it? Everywhere All at Once. What was the movie? Really popular movie, but he was an Indiana Jones young guy when he was in Indiana Jones, and he was talking about it, and he was talking about how you know he called his agent and was like, "Hey, is there any work for me? Anything going on? Like, can I get it? You know, I just need a job so I can keep my benefits from SAG." And you know, it is like these are the things that people don't actually talk about, because I think a lot of times with actors, people are like, "Oh, they're you know whatever," and I'm like, "No,
They're
actors
famous
be
people,
struggling.
yeah.
Like,
You know, that means you have
actors
money.
are struggling. Like sometimes, like a person working full time at McDonald's probably pulling more a year than an actor sometimes." And you know, because a lot of actors sometimes don't want to step into a space where it's just like, "Listen, I ain't got no money coming in, but you know, I'm such and such, so I can't get a job, a regular job somewhere." You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So it's just
yeah,
so
that's
it's like all
crazy.
these dynamics or whatever, right? And so yeah, so and then you got the personal relationship stuff going on, and then you know, and before I'll wrap it up like this, especially when you're doing like an intense role, for more so theater than even TV film, because theater you're kind of doing it over and over and over again every
Mm,
day. And I had one play that I was doing, and I had to, and it was in a small theater, so it's like I had to break down crying every night. And you know, in a small theater where everybody can see you, like you can't give a fake, you know what I mean? Like you gotta really go there to make people feel this. And I remember coming home and just being with my partner, and you know, Bridget, and it's just like, and I would just be like, leave me alone. Like I don't want to, you know what I mean? And it's just like because you're taking that with you.
yeah,
and you try to get rid of it, but it sits with you a lot of times. That's why a lot of actors have to go to therapy after they do certain roles, because you know what I mean. Like you carry it on. You start talking a certain type of way. You start acting a certain type of way. You know, people don't understand, like, acting, if done right, is spiritual work, and sometimes you let the stuff into you that you that you have to kind of like shake off a lot of times.
Yeah.
So
I appreciate you sharing that. Right, it's like you gotta like detox on some level, right? Like
mhm,
all those things, and once again, like it is hard to just navigate some of these spaces and all the challenges that can be, and the personal stuff comes up often, right? Like, and how can we be our best, and what happens if you have that coworker or colleague that it just gets on your nerve, or like anything, there's always somebody or some situation. And I think the pandemic really helped us to realize that we have a lot going on. We are more vulnerable than we realize. And Malachi, to your point, for many people it was the pandemic, and then for some folks it was racial reckoning, and there was a strike, and then,
mhm,
like, if we go down people's street and then get to their house, we might say, like, they might have lost some people, they might have lost a job, they might have had to work 3 jobs. I mean, like, these things that kind of add to who we are, that make it really difficult and complex. And I see it all the time, like just the personal struggles, and what I try to do is really help people with the whole person, right? One of the things I say is, how do you balance and navigate both business and love, like love of self, love of partner, love of family, because you can be great at school or at work or at in a movie, but be a horrible partner on the other side, or you could be the most loving, caring person in your family, but you're not able to show up and be productive. I think that the two are connected, and that's why people either go to therapy or find ways of release. And I saw it, right, even personally, of having to deal with losing my mom in 3 years ago, and being able to what that meant for me. And on one side, it's allowed me to care for other people who have lost even more. Like, talk about
mhm.
empathy. Like, yes, I've had to help people grieve before, but it's another thing when you go through your own grief
Yeah.
and then be able to show up, to your point, of like being able to live it and then help folks. So it's very much connected in just so many ways. And a lot of times, Mal, to your last point, we are not aware that we have taken in some of that stuff and it's coming out, right? Like,
Mhm.
as an actor, you might say, look, I just played this role for a minute and I know I still got some stuff, and have that awareness, I
Right.
got to work it out. But on everyday life, we've taken on some characters, we've taken on some mentalities, and we're not aware of it. I mean, like, look at, like, just in our adolescent times, we act a hot mess, right? Just 'cause of our friends and everybody else around us, we take that on, but we're not even aware of it, and we're impacting so many people around the way.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that sometimes there are things that we now consider as traumas that weren't considered traumas before, that we haven't dealt with, that show up all the time. You're like, "Ooh, where'd that come from?" And so, that awareness is super important, so important, both for yourself and helping others have awareness as well. Because sometimes it might be helpful for you to, pull someone aside, and like, "You're okay. It seems like this triggered you. Do you want to talk about it?" Or, from a friendly perspective, not even from a therapist perspective, just say, "Hey, friend, let's chat for a minute."
Yeah, yeah. It's so funny, even from a therapist perspective. I remember being in therapy and just having a regular conversation, and just not even thinking I'm unpacking the thing I think wanted to unpack, but I'm just having a conversation, and my therapist is like, "Let's go back to what you just said," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, blah 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 blah," and then she was like, "Oh, so that didn't affect you?" And I'm like, "Well, that's just
It's just
you
life,
probably need
right?
to unpack that." Like, it is like, so to your point, Bridget, it's things that you didn't think weren't necessarily traumas, but it's like when you actually say it, it's like that probably affected you, and you just kind of brushed it off and was like, "Oh, yep, yep, keep on moving." So yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And so I love this conversation, but I do want to be mindful that we want to keep to our podcast time. And so, as we think about wrapping up, there are a couple of questions I want to ask you, Dr. James, from the clinical perspective, just so that we have some kind of takeaways and nuggets for folks. So, if people are, struggling, you've got, leaders, you're managing people. It could be, in a school setting, another professional setting, or even on set. Give us some strategies for leaders to support those who are dealing with invisible battles.
Yeah, I think we said here today, one of the first things is always self-awareness, right? Like, how much are you, even as the leader, aware of what's happening for you and what's happening for those around you? And we've kind of put that into a category called emotional intelligence, right? How am I able to be aware that, oh, I'm affected, and then also be able to look at how other people are affected? What ways are you saying to your friend, your colleague, your team, your students, hey, are you okay? Right? Just checking in with people. I'm often the one that's checking in on lots of people. And I tell you, like, somebody hit me up like maybe about a month ago, just, hey, how you doing? I was like, I'm feeling. I'm like, they thought about me, right? Like, there's something about being thought of, especially by the leader or the person who is setting the environment to say, like, no, I'm thinking about you and I'm checking in on you. Also to have resources for people and just creating an environment where it's safe enough for somebody to say, hey, I had a tough day, or my students are not working the way they used to, or whatever the challenge might be. Having that type of environment goes a long way. It builds loyalty, it builds creativity, it builds people are more productive versus from what we used to think in the past of just kind of not being that healthy, wholesome environment.
Mal, anything you want to add from a creator's perspective?
Can you repeat that the question
Yeah,
again?
absolutely.
So I can
So,
make sure I'm
for
clear.
you, as a leader, how would you support those dealing with invisible battles?
Um, Interesting enough, I wasn't even aware of it, but I feel like I'm aware of it now, but before I wasn't. Um, when you're just honest and you're being very genuine and authentic about who you are and whatever you're going through, you'll find that people just kind of open up and whatever, they kind of just have conversations about, whatever invisible battle they're dealing with. And it happens to me all the time. I feel like I'm a very, especially the older I get, sometimes I've been like, why did I say that? You tell it too much, but it is like, you know what I mean? But I feel like I feel like being honest and dealing and yeah, just being honest and very true to where you are in life allows people to feel comfortable enough to say, you know what? Yeah, I was actually dealing with that as well. And you're like, oh, I had no idea. You know what I mean? And you'll see that people kind of open up. And so that's how I kind of deal with, helping people with invisible battles, just being authentic to who I am and making them feel comfortable enough to express whatever they're going through.
Yeah, and showing that vulnerability, which, people don't like that word. They think it's a negative word. They think it means that you're weak. But showing up as a real person and having real challenges helps other
Yeah.
people to see that you're also a real person too, and that they can kind of relate. So as we come to a close, Dr. James, talk to us about the importance of mental health awareness in educational settings, because I am doing an educational podcast. I feel like I should tie it up in that way.
Yeah, I think it's so important. Over this past year, I've been doing more connection with school administrators, heads of schools, assistant heads of schools, and just how much they do and how much work they put in, and they're often overwhelmed and need time. And there's something that for many leaders and especially school educators and administrators that they're not often practicing self-care
Yep.
and renewal. And so that's always my big important push is how are you renewing whatever that means for you. And then also to think about the whole student body, like parents,
Yep.
board of trustees, students. There's so much stuff going on and how the outside world impacts them and then how they impact the outside world. So obviously a big advocate for mental health, mental wellness, but self-care, for to really go after your dreams and to not really receive some of the limitations, because unfortunately, even in our schools, we put a lot of limitations on our young people, and we make them feel like they can't be or do things that they really can. And I think, once again, going back to moments from what Malachi produced, that sometimes those moments we don't choose is because people have told us these limits that we should have on ourselves for all these reasons. And I just want to encourage people that all those limits that you feel, you don't have to have them, and practicing good mental health can help you push those limits away.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And so as we close, again, thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Mal, I know that you have some other episodes of Moments that people can watch. And so we'll have a link to the Vimeo where you can see additional episodes. Dr. James, I know you're giving talks, and you had mentioned that about the different things that we come to life or show up with, and how we can kind of recognize those in others. But do you want to give a plug for the talks that you do?
Yeah, one, I can't wait to see the rest of the episodes. I'm already hooked. So Mal, like, please have me to it.
Appreciate it.
Two, the talk I give is called "I Give Myself Permission," and it is about really being aware of the limitations we hold, why we hold them, and how we can really move past that. And it's been a pleasure and honor to be able to do that, and how to see people impacted and being willing to say, I'm going to give myself permission for X, whatever that might be.
I love it. And so we want to give ourselves permission today to be our best selves. And so again, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And we're going to wrap here with this episode of the Dean's Roundtable podcast.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Dean's Roundtable podcast series. If you are a student life professional looking for regular support, look no further than the Dean's Roundtable online community platform, where K-12 leaders share resources, grow their network, and get 24/7 professional support. Also, be sure to check out our monthly Dean's Roundtable office hours, where we tackle real challenges together in real time. Links to join both are in the episode description. Find all the details at deansroundtable.org. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode was hosted by Bridget Johnson in conversation with Dr. George James and Malachi Rivers, produced and edited by Andrew Sigmund, and music by PremiumBeat.com. For any questions, contact information can be found in the episode description. And as always, thanks again for listening.